What is surveying in general?
You go out there and you find a stone that's chiseled that was placed in the late 1800s.
So you're basically an archaeologist, is what you're saying.
Yeah, we're just tracing the founding fathers, right?
Okay.
These scanners are unbelievable now. The scanner that we have can shoot 2 million points per second. It's always a gray area. How many points can you remove and still have an accurate surface?
How much is a LiDAR drone?
When we first went in, I think it was.
But you get like the software package too, right?
Oh
Or
yeah,
something?
no, that doesn't count all the soft.
Holy cow.
Numbers start feeling weird. It's like that's an extra 10 grand at this point.
Yeah,
What's 10?
yeah. I don't even remember what we're talking about now because that number was so big. All right, greetings and welcome to yet another Sounds of Solar podcast. I'm your host today, Christoph Brun. Joining me today, the same old fellas that always do. Who are you people?
Prahlad Shivshankar here.
Russell Hamilton here.
Well, great. Russ, looking good today.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, I like
Thank
the
you.
black on gold.
Is it gold? Or
Vegas
is it
Golden
olive?
Knights
I don't know.
vibes.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
classy.
Very
Thank you.
classy.
I like your chain.
Thank
Yeah,
You should pull it out.
Just
let
show
the audience see it.
gold looks good on you.
Yeah, Proddy.
Proddy's got
You should
that
be proud of
gold
that
chain.
gold
I don't know if I want to show it, but
Take your shirt off.
It's too much now. You got to show it. I mean,
Oh boy.
audiences
there's
want
like
to see
it's
it.
zoomed in now. The shot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the listeners can't see it, but Proddy's got a very nice gold chain on. Russell's got a chain on today too. I didn't grab mine. He's got a silver chainmail chain.
All the way from Greece, baby.
Wow. Did you get that from George's family?
No,
No.
I got it from Corfu,
A what?
from the island of Corfu.
Corfu.
Yeah.
Very nice. Well, speaking of vacation, I'm actually going to be vacationing soon.
Where are you going?
I'm going to be going to Cancun.
Nice.
Oh, well, actually, the Playa del Carmen, but that area of Mexico. Never been. Any tips? You guys? Scott's been there, I bet. No.
Never been to Mexico.
Oh, really?
Proddy?
I was in Mexico. I went there for my
Recently, right?
honeymoon. Yeah.
Oh,
so it was pretty.
yeah.
Which part?
So we landed in Cancun. We decided to drive. I don't know. I don't recommend that, but we.
Wait, say that again? What?
Yeah, we took a rental and then we drove from Cancun to Tulum. So
Oh.
with a stop in between.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I thought you were saying you drove from like Minneapolis.
No.
to
No.
Cancun.
No,
which
that
is
that would be crazy.
Dude.
No.
Okay.
No,
Okay,
but-
so we're taking the shuttle, but you took a car. You rented a
Yeah,
car.
yeah.
What was your experience renting the car? Is that okay?
Painful. No.
Painful?
What was painful about it?
Like I think we got scammed, but basically I
Not
I
the
would
first person
recommend.
I've heard that from.
Yeah, I would recommend not doing anything Expedia. Just make sure you go directly to the the car
Mhm.
website, like renter's website, and then do it.
Yeah.
Just because I did through Expedia, and then it was something it was supposed to cost you $250, and then next thing you know, I'm paying $500, $600 just for
Mhm.
it. So
Okay. All
So-
right.
I had something I don't know if it was quite similar, but when I was in Greece, I rented a car
Yeah.
and I didn't take out the extra insurance.
And
And I had a little scuff mark on the tire from a curb, and they charged me for a whole new tire.
oh wow.
It was like $450.
how big was the scuff?
I mean,
It was a knife gash.
no, it was just like discoloration.
You were just riding.
but
the
they were
rim
like,
the whole trip.
oh, we got to replace that now. I'm like,
Oh wow.
That's the first time I've ever heard of a insurance claim on a rental car. I don't think unless you crashed it, right?
Yeah.
Like wow.
This was on the sidewall, I assume. Like just you had
Mhm.
some.
yeah.
sense.
I didn't even notice it until I was there. And I was like, oh, I know exactly when it happened though. Like I knew when it happened. But
But what are you going to be doing there? Like any
Just chilling. Yeah. So we did.
are you at like an all-inclusive resort?
No, we booked a hotel through Points. It's on the
Nice.
water in Playa, and then I think just want to chill and then go to Tulum. I think is
Nice.
the cool new spot to go to.
Yeah.
Is that where the pyramids are?
They're
It's
all
close-
over.
It-
There's-
But is
there's
it the
some
one? Is it the one
there.
where like if you clap, it like echoes up and down? And
So
sounds
that's
like a bird?
Chichen Itza. It's
Oh,
sort of
Chichen.
like west of Tulum. It's sort of like it's almost like a triangle between
Yeah.
Cancun, Tulum, and
Oh, okay.
and there's a town there called Valladolid, which is beautiful, like Spanish inspired,
Yeah.
like town. So it's a beautiful spot to be.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of drove from Cancun, went to Valladolid, stayed there overnight, so that we can kind of quickly go check out Chichen Itza in the
Mhm.
morning, and then drove to Tulum, spent 5 days, and then drove back. So
Okay.
Nice.
it's kind of crazy, but
So
I
after
think-
you got the car, you were good though.
after we got the car, we were good, but like after 5 days, I feel like 9 days of vacation is too much. So
Yeah,
At
we're
the
doing
fifth day,
4
we're like-
full days, and I think that's gonna be like, all right,
Yeah.
we're good.
When do you
recharge.
go?
soon. I can't timestamp
Oh,
the
yeah.
podcast,
Okay.
Russ.
All right.
The listeners aren't going to get it soon enough.
All right.
For your information, I'm going tomorrow on the day of this recording, which is not available to our listeners.
All right. I'll say I'm going to Florida soon as well.
You're going to be a Florida man.
Yeah. Going to go to the 12 hours of Sebring
Right.
race.
Yeah, we were talking about that in March, right?
Yeah.
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 It'll be fun.
And New York City in April for a wedding.
He's a traveling man. All right, well, let's get into it. We have a very special guest today. Actually been on the show before. And Scott Alwin, manager of the survey department here at EVS. Scott, greetings. Welcome back to the Sounds of Solar podcast.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you guys for
yeah.
having me on.
How does it feel to be back?
Wonderful. Really appreciate being on with you guys and look forward to getting into some deep survey discussions.
Yes.
Can I ask, were you the survey manager the first time we were on the podcast?
When I
Were
was
there
on-
other survey employees even at that time?
Yes,
Yes.
We actually haven't been on the scale as the rest of this as a company. When I started, I was a survey project manager,
Mm-hmm.
and we had a survey manager. And as we've grown, I think at that time we were probably like 7 people. Now we're up to 12.
Mm-hmm.
So not the exponential growth that we see in the civil and electrical departments,
Yeah.
but we're still growing, and our technology has really changed since I've
Yeah.
started.
But unlike other departments at EVS which are very solar centric, survey is maybe 50% kind of splitting between
Yeah.
commercial.
50-50.
Yeah.
Yep, commercial and heavy highway.
Yeah. So before we go into the nitty gritty of survey, what about you? You know, you've been on. People maybe know you who are diehard listeners to the podcast. There's a lot of them out there. Who are you? How did you arrive at EVS? What's your sign? Personal details, etc.
All right. Honestly, I have no idea what my sign is.
We'll get Jordan to look that up.
Sure. So, got into surveying because my dad was a surveyor. So, he owned his own survey engineering company. So, we started in residential surveying. I was surveying before I could drive the company truck.
Mhm.
You know,
And where was this at?
in Minneapolis, just north
Okay.
in a suburb. So, and then I started liking it. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go to college. I'm gonna get my bachelor's in surveying, which you can do in a very small amount of schools in the United States.
Where'd you go?
Went to St. Cloud State.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So, got my
Go Huskies.
go
Is
Huskies.
it the obligatory?
That's right.
Yeah.
Great at hockey.
Yeah. Yeah,
Minnesota
that's
still
true.
Gotta be.
Yep.
And then got my bachelor's, and then ended up actually going out on my own almost right after college. Went in the oil booms in North Dakota. Spent a couple years out in North Dakota and got burnt out pretty quickly. of
Doing
that.
surveying?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. All for natural gas plants. It's pretty much
Sure.
exclusively what we were doing out there. And actually, I enjoyed my time out there. I mean, North Dakota, where we were at, it's a beautiful part of the country.
Mhm.
But working crazy hours, got burnt out. Didn't want to be on our own anymore. So
Yeah.
came back and started with EVS.
Where was that? Out in North Dakota?
We were in Watford City.
Wofford City?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Some
I'm
of the
assuming you're doing
best.
a lot of walking during your job. Is that why you got burnt out, or was it just like?
No, I was actually all in the office, so we were just managing. It's just
Okay.
long hours. Oil and gas industry is very,
Yeah.
very demanding. I mean,
Mhm.
so is solar, right?
Yeah.
So I guess
Yeah.
we're used to it. But
Yeah.
That oil
It's a
boom,
little
though,
different, I think, in
That,
that industry.
that oil boom, they go.
yeah.
Yeah. It's all go no.
Yeah. So did you live in a man camp or not?
Nope. I had a 2-bedroom apartment for a cheap price of like $2,500 a month.
Woo.
Wow.
So at
Yeah.
that time,
Spending $12 a gallon of milk and
yeah.
Yeah.
At that time, it was the most expensive rent in the country.
yeah, I believe it. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, I do remember that. People like driving RVs out there and
Yeah.
just, I don't know if people had jobs lined up. They just went out there.
Yeah.
Like,
And this was 10 years ago. 2,500 might not sound that crazy.
It was a lot back
nowadays.
then.
Yeah.
yeah.
I have some friends who worked out there, still work out there during that time, and it's just insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, you show up, you make 180K a year as labor. You just show up, you don't have any
Yeah.
skills. But
Yeah.
the cost of everything was crazy.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So when did you start at EVS then, Scott?
I started in March 2018, so I'm just coming on my 7th year.
Mhm. That's you are like a veteran in relative terms in EVS.
Yeah, I think at that point we were right around 40 people.
Okay.
So,
And I
And
don't
how
know
many
if
of
we
them were survey?
like 8.
8?
Yeah.
7
Okay.
or 8.
and I don't know if we have tipped the scale on 200 employees.
Getting close.
No,
Gotta be
close.
close.
It's pretty close. We had
Yeah.
quite a bit start just last week. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, 197. I'm hearing
Ooh.
from our producer.
Who's gonna be that 200th?
197.
Do they get a prize, Jordan, if they're the 200th employee? No.
Might just want to make a hire just to make 200.
Maybe I quit and come back as the
Come
200th
back just to be
just to get that prize.
So Scott, when you started with EVS, what drew you to EVS? Was it just like, hey, cool surveying job with cool people? Was the renewable energy a factor at that time, or not? Maybe not.
If it wasn't what drew me to EVS. We were actually trying to team up on a couple road projects.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to know pretty much I got to know Andy really well and the survey team. And it just seemed like a really good fit. So, just decided that it was time to be done on my own and join EVS. And it's been great ever since.
That's right. Okay, so let's maybe break things down just a touch for our listeners. What is it you do here? What is surveying in general?
Sure. So I guess surveying could be a lot of different things. It depends on the type of project you're at, what phase you're at. So in the solar world, let's just say we're very beginning, we're working for a developer. We had to do an ALTA survey, which stands for American Land Title Association. And it's really so like we can hand a project off to like our civil and electrical team so they can start doing site plans. So we're gonna on an ALTA survey, you're gonna figure out all like the encumbrances on a project. You're gonna get a boundary survey, find out any easements, do a topo, see what's
topo?
the topo. So you're gonna pretty much locate everything out in the field. So it can include elevations. It cannot include elevations. You're gonna locate, trees, roads, any features that you can see when you're out in the field.
And the ALTA is that's like the grail as far as starting the project, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
so-
if you don't have that, you can't do anything.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's kind of ALTA. They kind of made it a national standard, so it's easier for people to finance projects and get insurance for.
Was there were other ways of doing that?
I mean, you can just do like a boundary and topo. So it's
Sure.
not categorized in ALTA. ALTA has a few more standards that gets
Oh, okay.
added to the survey.
So is ALTA a public organization or is it like a private organization?
Public. Yeah.
Okay. So it is like for my realm, like ASCE, American Society of Civil Engineers, they like govern the design codes. Is it like kind of the same concept?
Yep.
basically?
Exactly.
Okay.
Standards published. It's also correlated with the National Surveyors or National Society of Public Surveyors, NSPS.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
so you guys go out there in the field, like how do you guys like figure out those boundaries and stuff like that? What do you guys do to kind of figure that out?
So typically our client we'll have to purchase a title commitment.
Okay.
That title commitment will have the legal description of the property. And with that, we can compute the boundary description. I mean, from the boundary description, we compute out the boundary in CAD.
Okay.
And that'll give our crews search points to start looking for boundary monumentation. And depending on, I mean, some of these boundaries are from the 1800s, so the descriptions can be terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wait, so when you run into that, like, are you looking at like a scroll of like handwritten calligraphy of?
to be a surveyor, you will want to know cursive.
Okay. Right.
And very terribly written cursive.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
So, but it's awesome because you can go out and you get search points, and sometimes you're like, I'm confident within like a 20-foot circle,
Mhm.
and then you go out there and you find a stone that's chiseled that was placed in the late 1800s. It's a really cool feeling when you're out in the field and you get to see these monuments.
So you're basically an archeologist, is what you're saying.
Yeah, we're
Pretty
just
much.
tracing the founding fathers, right?
Okay. Is Indiana Jones your favorite movie?
I mean, it is up there, right?
It's got to be up
phenomenal.
there. If you don't like Indiana Jones, what are you doing? Come on. So yeah, well, as far as interfacing with other departments at EVS, or is there anything else you want to add about what surveying is?
Tell us about LiDAR.
Tell us
LiDAR.
about LiDAR.
All right, so
Let's
we're
go
going
to
to go right
LiDAR.
into drones, all right?
Drones.
Let's go to
Yeah.
drones.
I
So-
like drones.
Yeah, so
But before you go into drones, I guess you can kind of give us a breakdown of what was done before and then how we kind of step towards drones or whatever. So I think that'll give a bit
Yeah,
context for
yeah.
the listeners
Classical.
as well.
What is
Yeah.
classical
What's
surveying?
classical? Are we just
Yeah.
going in with jackets and marking points?
no, great point. So like when we started, I mean, before drones really took off, I guess pun intended, I guess there. Yeah, it was all boots on the ground. Everyone you were walking, every square inch of that property, with GPS units or robotic total stations, and you're traversing the land. And with these solar sites nowadays, you could see
Yeah.
we do not have the timer.
Yeah,
you
it's
know.
5 acres or more, like for like a small, like 1 megawatt project.
Mm.
It
Yeah.
just scales massively.
Yeah, 1 megawatt. Yeah, usually you have 5 acres, you know, and then we get up to I think our biggest site now is up to 15,000 acres.
So, like, as a surveying professional, you will never work on projects bigger than these, right? Or is that not necessarily true?
I mean, I don't think you can get into like some really, really large pipeline projects that are
Sure.
like, you know, a corridor that's, you know, a couple hundred miles.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, you know, acreage wise, it's about as big as you can get. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, wind farms are also,
Yeah, they're huge too, I
Huge.
suppose. Yeah.
but it's up there. It's some large surveying, no
Mhm.
doubt.
So, like, back in the day, everything's done by hand. You're tying in points, like, point to point, right?
Yeah.
And then GPS, etc. And then is LiDAR well, what is LiDAR? Is this is appropriate time to segue into LiDAR?
Yeah. So LiDAR is essentially, it stands for light detection and ranging.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, the LiDAR scanner is sending out a laser and it's measuring how much time that
Freaking laser.
Yeah, lasers, lots of lasers.
Yeah.
It's measuring the time it takes for that laser to return back to the LiDAR scanner.
Yeah.
And I mean, these scanners are unbelievable now. The scanner that we have can shoot 2 million points per second.
Oh wow.
Wow, that's
Sounds like a lot of points.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's why, I mean, the hardest thing in our industry is like just computing power.
Yeah.
You're going to get a project, you're going to have literally, I mean, one project can have 5 billion points. So
And what does that translate into in a CAD form?
it starts in a point cloud. We don't get it into AutoCAD until actually that's usually our final deliverable. But
Okay.
we're using like a program called Trimble Business Center for us.
Yep.
AutoCAD has a hard time handling large point clouds.
Yeah.
So, and the problem is that right away there's some noise in there, so you have to classify the point cloud. And when you classify it, it'll show you like the vegetation shots. Most of the time, we're interested in the ground
ground.
for civil.
So when you have a large project and you do these billions of data points, how long does it take the program you're using to like sparse through that and give you something usable?
Yeah, so I mean, once you get the point cloud into Trimble Business Center, you literally, to classify it, you can hit, and this is a supercomputer, the best computer we have at EVS. You hit the start button, and it's just going to turn for 10 hours.
10
Wow.
hours.
So-
Okay.
Do you know, like, the specs on the computer?
I am not the computer
You
whiz.
you
that
just
I
know
wish
it's
I
the
was.
best one we have.
Yeah, talking to Wally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and Wally's probably like, yeah, it's the best one we have.
And he
Not.
he also said about my laptop and everything else I have at EVS.
You were like, Wally, what's that computer? What's that one you're playing that game on? Oh, this is nothing. This is my own personal.
terrible.
So does it have to be babysat during that 10 hours, or is it literally just hit a button, you can walk away, come back later, and it's done?
It's literally, yeah, you don't have to
Okay.
babysit it. So at least there's not like a lot of, human
hasn't
time
crashed
sitting behind
yet?
there. Oh yeah, it can crash, and then you're starting it all over, no
Yeah.
doubt.
You got too many points.
So what is the output of that program? What does it give you?
So that once you classify the point cloud, it's going to give you like a ground point cloud. It's going to give you, vegetation. It'll give you the power lines. We care like about that a lot of times for
Yeah.
clearance and also, for T-line design.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, these files, after you classify it, the files are still way too big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now we have to, sample size the ground to get it into a surface. And sampling it's going to be like right now our ground point cloud will be 1 billion points, and we want to take 95. We're going to get rid of 95% of those
Mhm.
points. And it's always a gray area. How many points can you remove and still have an accurate surface?
Yeah.
Mm.
And that I think is the challenging part of LiDAR. I
Mhm.
think the flying is actually the easy part. When you crews go out there, flight plans are all relatively automated.
So when they fly the drone, they're not manually flying it. There's a predetermined flight path that the drone is going to take to capture the data, essentially.
Yep, that's right.
Do
So
you program that ahead of time then? Or
we can do it both ways.
okay.
And it's kind of crew dependent. So like if I were
Okay.
to go flying, I wouldn't, but we have crews that prefer it. So we can go either way.
Do you have to have a license?
Yes,
Yeah.
have your-
So is everybody on the survey team, are they licensed to fly?
Yep, everyone has
Nice.
it's called their Part 107.
Yep.
Yeah. And what does it take to get that? Certain courses and tests and stuff?
You just have to pass a test,
Mhm.
but you're not going to pass that test without studying. It's not
Mhm.
like a common sense test.
Gotcha.
You're going to have to, know airspace is one of
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
biggest part of it.
And there's like there's probably a height limitation.
Yep,
Or-
we can't fly higher than 400 feet.
Oh, wow.
I wish we could fly higher than 400 feet, but we can't.
Would that help with the data capturing process?
We'd be able to capture more land per flight.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, every flight. So the problem with drones right now is batteries.
Mm.
Oh yeah,
Our flight times are only like 20 minutes.
only that seems like pretty good for a drone. Relative,
Yeah, but
I
if
have
you're,
some
if you're
drone
doing
background, but like
15,000 acres, like you said,
Yeah.
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 So, I mean, so we're, constantly swapping batteries all day
Yeah.
long.
when you do that, I mean, do the crew they fly the drone and then the crew physically then need to mobilize to the next spot, put a new battery in, fly there, and is it just like this iterative process, like going step by step, or?
Yeah. So typically they'll probably be in 1 or 2 spots a day.
Mm-hmm.
So you can fly about 200 acres. So the drone can, it'll fly, its next flight pattern will be relatively close to where you're at.
Yeah,
And I mean, for Part 107, you just have to have line of sight of that drone. So if you can see it,
sure.
and you're flying legally.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Do you have to like service the drone? Does it have does it wear out, or like, I mean, eventually, yeah, but
yeah, there's not like any like, there's not like a really good manual in the whole drone space. I mean, drones are growing, but they're still relatively new.
yeah.
And you're dealing with a whole bunch of different manufacturers that are relatively new. I mean, DJI is a big one, Chinese-made drones, but they're starting to have issues with being able to fly in the United States. So we use American-made drones. And the main reason why we want to use American-made, well, because they're American, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, because they got V8s in them. Wait, they don't, right?
Are these drones coming with their own like LiDAR sensors, or is it our technology? Is it somebody else's? Like what's
So no, our scanner came. So our LiDAR scanner actually was built in France. So it's yellow scanner,
okay?
and our drone is separate. That's built in Washington.
Oh, okay. So you guys piecemeal it kind of together, and then
Yeah,
that.
and we
Cool.
work with our equipment manufacturers to help us with that.
So how
Pretty
many
cool.
drones do we have that we use for LiDAR?
For LiDAR, we have 2,
Two.
but then if we use it for aerials, we probably have 3 for aerials, so 5 drones total.
Okay.
5 total.
So what does it take? So like a typical, say, 100 megawatt sized project, how long does it take to do the LiDAR?
So I'm just
Like
gonna
in the
ballpark
field? Yeah.
2,000 acres, 1,000 acres.
Sure.
Sure.
We could probably fly that in a day.
Okay.
But there's a lot of upfront work before you fly, setting aerial targets for the LiDAR,
Yeah.
and
What is an aerial target?
essentially a 4x4 target you just nail to the ground,
Mm-hmm.
and the LiDAR scanner will pick that up. So you can
These are physical. Literally, you're talking about nailing a physical thing in the ground that is a base point. For
Yep.
The, okay.
And then our ground crews will take a GPS check shot on that center of that target. The LiDAR scanner will pick up that target, so we're just confirming that we're on the correct coordinate systems. Our elevations are hitting good.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll set on a 100 megawatt project. We'll probably set 8 of those.
Okay.
And
Did
then
people take them out for like a joyride ever, or just like take it out for a rip?
not the LiDAR ones, but maybe aerial drones. They have cameras on it. You can take
Yeah.
cool videos.
Yeah.
Cool.
One of our local clients here, we take construction progress videos
Yeah.
every few months for the
I've seen some of those.
the
Are pretty
Vikings.
cool.
Yeah.
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 So what about I'm sure we'll probably come back to drones because drones are cool. But what about like surveying and I was saying this earlier, surveying, interfacing with other departments at EVS? Can you kind of characterize your role in solar projects and how you interface with other departments?
Yeah, absolutely. So they're drastically different if we're going to work for like a developer versus an EPC. I'd say we're more so working for EPCs, so I'll just go for that realm. Typically, the ALTA's already done, so we're now our civil department's more interested in to see how good our surface is. So we'll either go one of 2 ways. We'll just go out and refly and get a surface, and we'll come back, provide that to our civil department, and they can start their grading analysis.
Is that like put together with the ALTA then, or they're 2 different things? Like how do they interface then?
It's not actually in the ALTA CAD file, but they'd interface. It's its own separate drawing that you can, XREF, and combine it in one package. So, but there's times where there's already a LiDAR surface. So in those cases, we might go out and just see if we consider that surface accurate enough for our design. So in those scenarios, we'll go out. Our crews will just take GPS check shots across the whole site. We'll bring it back. We'll see if those tolerances are hitting good with our check shots, and if they are, we'll move forward with that surface. So it's definitely several different ways we can go.
And then the departments that you work closely with, I assume civil and PV and BES.
Civil. No, we're not really working with structural that much. Granted, I think they need our surface, but we're just
Yeah.
It's all like a cascading effect, basically, right? You need to be
Civil's the biggest.
civil's number one.
Yeah, they're going to define the buildable area map, and then we need the BAM to then start the PV layout. So
layout.
you probably take the BAM is the grail for you, right, to get a project started early on.
Yep. Yeah, and we'll always get it from the civil team. Like they'll kind of declassify it, saying like, "Hey, this is the ALTA file. This is our buildable area map," and then you guys can start putting your electrical layout. And then the ALTA is super critical for us because you have your overhead lines that you guys capture, gas pipelines, and all those kind of things that we need to take into account to understand crossing scenarios. If we need a bore underneath, that kind of thing. So. Yeah, definitely like getting that right is super critical because I know sometimes it goes through iterations and trying to design while that's getting iterated is a huge pain
don't wanna do
and a
that.
bottleneck. No.
Yeah.
But it happens a lot.
Yeah.
Happens a lot. You don't want to discover pipelines a month after you've started design. So,
So would you say for surveying, it's I think probably similar to geotech. You're the first folks out on a project. So my question will be like, how many projects have you gone and worked on where after you've done your portion, the project's just gone away?
Yeah, several. I mean, either whether it's gone away or, it's in the solar world 5 years from now, all of a sudden this project comes back to life.
Yep.
Sure. Right. Yeah.
But as we know, it wasn't feasible at the time to build. So, whether it was some feature that threw it off, too much terrain, could be, numerous things that could throw a wrench in.
Yeah.
So typically, it's always early stage. We call this due diligence, typically, right? What do you ever get involved midway through the project, end of the project, or is that very rare? Anything like that?
So we will get involved. I mean, a lot of times we'll be involved during construction. So let's just say a very heavily wooded project.
Yep.
They clear the trees.
They need a new surface.
We're in a new surface.
Yeah.
So we'll refly it. A lot of times after the whole site's been graded, they want to verify that the grading was accurate. So we'll refly it.
And this is at the stage of grading just being done, not like piles in the ground, no trackers, right? Is like right when grading finishes.
Correct.
Yep.
Yes.
And
You have
then-
a very tight window because they're going to want to get piles in right away. So
Yeah.
But that's not always done that way, right? Like it depends on it's project to project, right? You might fly. You're saying you might fly LiDAR to verify grading, but you don't like you could do that manually, right? Or like GPS or
correct.
whatever.
Yep. Industry, you hear a lot of times buggy topos. I don't know if you've heard that
Buggy
term.
topo.
Yeah.
It's my new band.
Where someone will put a GPS on a UTV side by side, and
They're
they'll-
only called buggies in our industry. I swear, I've never.
I would agree with that.
What? Do you want to like? Because people will go, go side by side. Okay, if we're going to the cabin, here's a question, and we're gonna go ride the trails, which some of you maybe have done. What would you call that activity?
Yeah. Side by side.
Side by side.
Wheeling.
Wheeling is the
four-wheel.
correct
ATV,
up north
yeah.
terminology.
But the buggy thing, like growing up, like we had sand dune buggies.
But do you say we're gonna go buggying?
when we would go to the sand dunes? Yeah.
But what's the act called?
I don't remember.
See, now he doesn't remember.
I don't know. Like, I don't know.
You
Take
go
the
to the sand dunes,
buggy out.
bug out.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
But that was on the West Coast, so.
It's a whole different world. Anyway, you're on the buggy, and then what happens?
GPS is right on there, and it'll take continuous shots. So as it drives, that GPS is just taking a ground shot. Northing and easting elevation
Automatically?
automatically.
Yeah.
You just got to drive a slow speed, and you set it to whatever you can set it every 5 feet, and you can just take a grid across the site. And
how
it's
many
very common. You see that in
Yeah,
done
that's
by a lot
I've definitely.
contractors.
Yep.
And how many buggies does EVS have?
we have 2. We also rent quite a bit.
I think that's usually what they are. And here's an aside, a fun fact: buggy theft on solar sites very high,
Yeah.
very
Interesting.
high. It's a thing, unfortunately.
I don't know how you resist yourself to drive slow. That's that's just in my head
Right.
now. I'm like,
Is there a cruise control that you can just hit?
you don't have to fly slow all day, just when you're taking GPS shots.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
So, okay, what else, Scott? You started in 2018. Talk about the growth of the surveying departments and things that have changed. since 2018, and then especially since you've last been on the Sounds of Solar podcast.
Sure. So like when I started in 2018, we had a drone, but it was sitting on a shelf. No one was using it.
Okay.
So
it was just Andy's toy.
probably, and of course, technology drone.
Yeah.
Why would you not buy one? We'll figure it out
exactly.
later. And then so we started getting, it was all aerials at this point, which is essentially a drone's gonna take photos and it stitches them together and make an aerial of a property, which you can still get accurate surfaces from aerials, if the site conditions are correct. You wouldn't want vegetation or anything like that. But yeah, so there was a drone sitting there. I'm like, well, let's figure this out. We flew a couple sites, had a bunch of pilot projects, and we were really
That's a pun. That's a pun.
That's pun number 2.
There might have been an
We'll keep
oil
it
one in
going.
there too, but we'll look at that in post.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we were really liking the residuals, and that's from aerials. So we started using it more and more. Started looking at LiDAR. LiDAR was financially, a big commitment from EVS. So, but
How much is a LiDAR drone?
when we first went in, I think it was 250,000. I think our last one
No,
was 350.
What?
Probably when you guys started is when LiDAR took off with the EV industry, right? Because I think that's probably what LiDAR was initially kind of used for the autopilot or whatever they call it, like the full self-driving. I think they use a lot of
Self-flying, I think.
Well, full FSD they use. Oh yeah.
Yeah, we can talk about FSD. In a bit.
FSD, yeah.
So, but yeah, so
350.
so yeah,
Well,
but
that's
That's
the
gonna save
commitment.
so much time.
That's
though,
just
right?
the hardware. Well, like the
That's
unit,
that's all in.
but you get like the software package too, right?
Oh
Or
yeah,
something?
no, that doesn't count all the software. That's
Oh.
another
No.
But that's not.
Holy cow!
Numbers start feeling a little weird. It's like that's an extra 10 grand. At
Yeah,
this point, what's
yeah.
10?
Well,
Right.
10 grand at this point.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so, and I mean, we went in and we bought the high-end drones.
Yeah.
And we went. You
Bought the limited
you can
trim.
bet-
Investment.
You can get a LiDAR scanner for $30,000.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
the iPhones have LiDAR on it, so
that's a good point.
so.
I don't even remember what we were talking about now because that number was so big. Any other things that have changed? You spent 350 grand on a LiDAR drone. That's pretty tight.
Yes, some of the field equipment has improved drastically on the GPS side. I don't know how familiar you guys are with GPS. It's on a rod. You have a little level bubble.
Yep.
The GPS now has an IMU in it. You don't have to look at the level bubble. It's always level. I mean, it'll always show you the level residuals.
Yep.
Which is
Is this from back when like you had to look through the thing? And...
that's now you're talking robotic total stations.
Okay.
We still use those. You need those for construction.
Yeah.
Solar world, we really aren't using those too much unless we're in some thick woods. and we
Yeah,
can't
has
get
there been
reception.
any changes and updates to the satellite networks? Because I spent a summer. Holy cow! This was 2009. To harken back to a different time. I spent time on a soils crew, and we did GPS data logging, and we had GLONASS.
Yep.
And
Still using GLONASS. Yep.
what's the other one?
There's a Russian one.
I thought the Russian one was the GLONASS. No, I don't remember. I'm not sure.
I'm not positive either.
We'll have to fact check this.
Yeah.
But
but
there's-
they're adding more and more satellites.
Sure, yeah. So the fidelity is improving,
Yeah.
like year by year. Because I remember, I think sometimes our, it was like 10, 20 feet, 30 feet was our accuracy, but now it's got to be pretty tight.
Yeah. Now we're, if you set up a base station on site, which is essentially creating you put a permanent GPS on site that has, residuals you already know or a coordinate you already know. Our residuals on a topo shot would be, half inch. Or
What
less.
is a residual?
Residual is what you're confident on your northern easting elevation. It's pretty
Okay.
much your location. How confident are you're locating that point correctly?
Mm-hmm.
And we're floating about a half inch.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Right.
It's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, we got sidetracked a little bit. You were still talking about buying a expensive drone, and then we talked about
Expensive
residuals.
Talk about growth of the department.
Growth of the departments,
Growth of the
which
department.
included the drone.
Yeah.
Yes. And so now when you get into drones, we haven't grown substantially personnel wise as other departments, but when you buy a drone
That's like 5 people or
that's
something.
efficiency
Yeah.
changes
Yeah.
substantially. So
Yeah.
now what you could do, I mean, a utility scale site would probably take a month for 2 people. Now we're doing that in a week with
Yeah.
2 people.
That's huge.
So
Yeah, and solar sites aren't getting any smaller, as far as I can tell.
And
And
they
you
used
said average project size 100 megawatt, and it's
That's
like
not even
that's
average
like
anymore.
pretty
Yeah.
small now,
That's-
actually.
yeah.
Before I started EVS, I'm telling you, a 100-acre project was like, wow, this is a big project.
Yeah.
Big project.
Now I'm like, then I get into like 1,000 acres. Wow, this is a big project. And now I'm like, it's not big until you get over like 6,000 acres.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's just insane.
Yeah.
These sites are unbelievable.
Yeah, and it correlates with like I remember the first solar project. It was like 20 megawatt, and I was like, "Oh, this is huge." And I remember my first 75 megawatt. Oh, this is insane. And now it's like if it's below 250, you're like,
Yeah.
it's not that big.
It's easy. It'll design itself, whatever.
And they throw gigawatts out there. It's unreal.
Yeah, I got one that's 1.5 gig right now. I think that's maybe the one we can't say the project name.
You can't
but
talk about it.
15,000 acres. Is
not
that
even
the
real.
one? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, and I actually think it's going up to 20,000.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be two.
We're just-
two.
yeah, we're
gig
adding
at
the
the end
fourth
of it.
phase.
Yeah, they're adding the fourth
Let's
phase to that.
add
project.
fourth
Why not?
phase.
Whew. And DC coupled best. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But with
It's a doozy.
with all LiDAR technology, like with LiDAR coming in, is surveying sort of like standardized now, do you think? Or what makes EVS surveying, I guess, different? A tough question, but I guess.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely not standardized. I think,
Okay.
LiDAR still, there's a lot of new, companies coming into LiDAR that are trying to figure it out. We had a learning curve too. Everyone's going to have it. So you see it, all different kinds of, and all over the spectrum, where you see LiDAR done well. You can see where it's, everyone in construction has worked on a project that had a bad LiDAR surface. And the issues that causes in construction is a nightmare. So that's why EVS kind of goes above and beyond on the boots on the ground aspect of LiDAR, and we'll take GPS check shots across the whole site. So that means when we hand over a surface, we're 100% confident in its accuracies. So to add a couple days in the field, but in the grand scheme of it, it's worth it.
Yeah, nice.
Makes sense.
So, quick question. I think maybe we didn't ask it. Maybe we did. Sorry if we did. But how many projects are you doing that we're not doing the design for? So, like, are there projects out there that we're getting work to go do surveying for that we're not maybe necessarily
Maybe other than commercial too.
right?
Sure.
For
Commercial's
utility
very
scale solar, I guess is
standalone.
what I'm
Yeah.
asking. Like,
So
do we do that work, or do we only do that work when we have that
I would
in-house?
say on the solar side, probably 30% of our projects, we might not have any other discipline involved.
Okay.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And in Minnesota, we still do a lot of 1 megawatt projects where companies kind of moving towards utility scale, obviously. But then there is still some utility scale projects that we aren't doing any other engineering on.
It's all a capacity game, right?
Always.
Yep, it's hard. We're in a good spot. So we kind of covered the past, the present, talked about drones for 20 minutes. What about the future, Scott Alwin, manager of survey? Challenges you see moving forward?
Solutions, new
Solutions?
technologies.
The survey challenges is always how do we figure out capacities? Drones have helped, but we're still, we're always battling, a lot of work and just, traveling crews is a hard position to find. It's, it's a unique position. So we're battling capacity, but we're getting there. We're situated really well right now. Best we ever have. We have phenomenal field crews. So
Where do you see the industry, solar surveying going next couple of years, 5-10 years, if you can even?
well, sites are
Predict.
just getting bigger.
Yeah.
One thing I didn't mention about our LiDAR scanner is,
Here we
and
go.
this is my goal, is we can mount that onto a helicopter. And I want to get a LiDAR project, 15,000 acres. I think if we got a project we're flying over 15,000 acres, we could rent a helicopter,
Well,
mount that thing on there, and do a project by helicopter.
I want to see
Yeah.
Scott in this action movie.
Yes.
He's in the helicopter. We've got Danger Zone playing in the background.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
You flew. Plane. My
Yeah.
dream was always get my pilot's license.
Yeah.
So
Go do it.
This is your chance.
It's fun.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
expensive, but it's fun.
Well, we'll start a Kickstarter for Scott's pilot license.
Maybe
So
EVS
just
can sponsor that.
Yeah.
put a link in the show notes.
Can we get a private jet? Are we there yet?
Oh man, let's get there.
Maybe like a Cessna 172, but we'll paint it real nice. Any other things to add?
I've got
folks?
a quick question
Yeah.
for you. I think with drones and stuff, I think we're also able to do a lot more than just LiDAR, right? I think people are using it for maintenance and trying to figure out issues as well. Do you guys see yourself looking at that? Try to kind of make
You mean
use
like
of
when
this?
the PV plant is already built and
Yeah.
like getting like a live status kind of thing.
Kind of, yeah. Instead of having boots on the ground to kind of verify status, you can kind of have drones fly around.
Yeah,
Like a
Temperature
in your maintenance plan or
sensors.
something?
Yeah.
thermal.
Thermal.
We've looked at thermal before, but I mean, our capacity. We're just trying to support the projects we have. It's hard for us to branch out right now.
Because this is like almost like a different offering. It's a
Yeah.
business service, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
and we've been reached out and seen, a project that's not performing that it would, as they
Yeah.
think, go fly a site with thermals and see if there's, anything you can see on the arrays.
Mm.
So it's definitely a service that's happening out there,
Okay.
but we aren't doing it.
Mm-hmm. So it's not-
Inspection's another big one,
yeah.
especially in areas that are dangerous or.
It sounds like EVS needs to invest in a cloning division to clone more engineers and surveyors, and then we will have capacity.
Yeah, figure that one out.
We could reverse engineer that LiDAR drone and rebuild it or something on our own.
Yeah, might cost
Anyway,
just as much.
right. You guys all good before I give Scott the softball question?
All right, let's hear it.
Scott,
Yeah.
so you've been in the industry, you've seen it all. If you had a person you were going to give advice to, whether they're new grad, old grad, medium grad, someone entering the renewable energy industry, surveying industry, what would that advice be?
You're right. It is kind of softball. With this discussion we've already had, embrace technology.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to embrace technology. You're going to get left behind. I
Yeah.
mean, it was very clear that survey was going to go towards drones. I mean, it's just not solar. I mean, there's a spot for drones in every sector.
Mhm.
So, what's next? I'm not sure. I mean, they have little robots, surveying right now. The robot dog that Boston Scientific
Yes.
Boston.
has.
Yeah, and then
that's been around for a while.
Look
but
at where that was 10 years ago, and now I forget the name of the tip of my tongue. Their robot, but before it was like
I love
I
those
can barely
videos.
walk, and now it's like
Yeah.
I can do 10 backflips in a
Yeah.
row. And it's
When they like push it and beat it out.
yeah. It's like hey, stop, ow.
It's-
yeah. So push yourself. Stay on the cutting edge of technology.
Yeah.
There is. I mean, it's hard to break that circle because it's an investment, but it'll pay off in the long run.
Yeah, as a recent owner of an EV, I definitely agree with that because the time is now. It's so fun. So I think that's going to wrap us up here for the Sounds of Solar podcast today. Make sure to do the things that you're supposed to do after you hear me tell you to do those things. Like, share, subscribe, check the show notes. Share it with your friends, your industry friends, solar friends. Russ is kind of knows what he's just doing with his hands. Good hand position.
I
That's
don't know what
great.
to do with my hands.
That's good. That's good. And we'll see you next time on the Sounds of Solar podcast.
Peace.